My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help you build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And the purpose of today's video is to give you the market update for what's going on in Anchorage. Now, Anchorage, obviously the biggest market that we have up here in Alaska, so it's pretty important. We'll be talking about the residential, the condo, and the multifamily market, and then summarize everything at the end to give you a good feel for what's happening. Before we get started though, as always, do make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe so you can receive more information like this in the future. And without further ado, let's go and jump into today's market update for Anchorage. First thing that we need to look at is active inventory on the residential side. So this time last year, there were 440 homes approximately on the market in Anchorage. Now we're seeing there's approximately 290. So right off the bat, pretty sizable decrease in the inventory that's available. The next thing that we're seeing is that the number of properties that actually sold in this market during this time period went from about 292 properties this time last year to now we're seeing that actually 307 properties sold during the same time period in November, when we have the most recent month we have all the information for. So that tells us inventory is down, and yet we're still seeing an increase in the number of properties that have sold. So we'll talk more about that in the summary, but that's pretty significant. The next thing we need to look at is the average sold price for properties in Anchorage that are on the residential side. So this time last year, average sold price in November, the month that we have the most recent up-to-date information, was $400,000. Now it's approximately $418,000. And that's going to be pretty accurate and pretty in touch with what's happened with the rest of the market throughout this entire year. You can see in the chart how much of an increase there has been in the sold price across the board, but we'll talk more about that in the summary. The next thing we're going to look at is the active inventory for condos. So on the condo side, what we're seeing is that this time last year, there were about 320 condos that were on the market. Now we're seeing a drastic reduction down to about 170 condos on the market. So obviously it's a pretty sizable cut there. Let's go and take a look and see what's going on as far as the units that have actually sold in the market during that time period. The number of units that actually sold in the market increased actually year over date. So what we saw is this time last year in November, again, the month that we have the most accurate up-to-date information for, is 101 properties sold this time last year, and this year 120 sold in the same month. So despite the inventory taking such a drastic cut, we are still seeing a increase in the number of units that have actually sold. The average sold price for condos in Anchorage actually has increased as well, evidenced by the fact that the average sold price this time last year was roughly about 221,000, and this year it's about 236,000 during the same month that we're looking at in November. So that's pretty much in keeping with what we saw for the rest of the market. Let's take a break real quick. If you are looking at selling your property, obviously you have a lot of questions on what the process looks like and what we can do to help you to maximize what you can get for it. If you're interested in receiving our seller's guide, feel free to go ahead and text me at the number that's going to be coming right down here at the bottom, and I'd be more than happy to send the seller guide over to you so you can take a look at that and start getting a good feel for what it is that you need to do to get your property ready to go. That's obviously free of charge, and it's a service that I do like providing for people. So do take advantage of that, and let's go and see what's going on with multifamily properties here in Anchorage. Now, multifamily properties in Anchorage encompasses everything from the little duplex to the big multifamily property that has like 30 plus units in it. So it really does cover a wide spectrum. But first thing I would point out, this time last year, there were 187 properties there on the market, and now there is 113. So seeing a pretty big cut in the inventory, which is actually not really in keeping with what we've seen in trends in past years, but save that for the summary. Despite the inventory being so low in the multifamily market, we're actually seeing that we actually sold 11 more homes in this market than we did this time last year. There were 37 multifamily properties that sold in the month of November this time last year, and now we've sold 48. So proportionally, pretty big increase in the number of properties that have sold in the month of November. Okay, I'm going to tell you how the average sold price has increased for multifamily properties in Anchorage, and then I'm going to explain it a little bit better so everyone, one, doesn't get too excited, or two, has a real doomsday approach to investing. So the average sold price went from about $465,000 this time last year to this year. The average sold price is $564,000. That's right. That's nearly a $100,000 increase in the average sold price for multifamily properties in Anchorage. So what we see there is, obviously, like we said before, multifamily includes everything from a little mom and pop duplex all the way up to the big commercial multifamily property that you have full-on property managers for and all that. So we're going to see some big spikes from time to time, especially when we have a smaller number of properties that actually sold. It's easier to throw that off when we have a big property that sells, and it's a smaller sample size because there are less properties that have sold. So that's to be expected. I don't believe that fully explains the big increase in the average sold price, but that just is, it's not quite, just because you bought something for $200,000 last year doesn't mean you can sell it now for $300,000, okay? There are limits to what we can do here. There is a really healthy appreciation for multifamily investments going on in Anchorage. Reason for that? Yes, the prices are going up, but who cares? Okay, you've got a great interest rate. Go in there and use it. The savvy investors know that interest rate is really what's going to make the property cash flow. And also, the big money right now is just that the rents are going up, which makes a lot of properties suddenly available and attractive that weren't really attractive before. And really the value proposition, really the opportunity investors should be looking at right now are trying to find, one, properties that are under rented, where the tenants aren't paying market value for it, so you can come in, increase the rents and get that benefit. Or two, the property isn't being used to its highest and best use. In other words, it's zoned for one use where you could use it that way, but they're not using that way, so you come in and convert it that way. Those are going to be your big opportunities. It's not going to be with trying to come in and just trying to beat someone to death on the sales price. That's a strategy that worked well a couple decades ago. This is the 2020s, and you need to get out of the kind of the outdated strategies. Sure, they work when you can find it, but I wouldn't expect to find it very often at all. So know what the opportunities are. On the residential side, we're seeing increased sales volume, despite the fact that we are seeing kind of a pulling back in the inventory. We're seeing a more sizable cut in the inventory on the residential side and on the condo side for what we usually see this time of year. I'm expecting the sales price to continue to be appreciating at a pretty healthy clip, just as long as the interest rates are up. As soon as the interest rates go up, though, those sales prices are going to start coming down because there's going to be less demand. So that's going to be your summary. I sure hope this was useful for you. Again, if it is, get this video a like. If you're looking at moving up to Alaska, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to send you the relocation guide and explain what moving to Alaska is all about. If you're looking at selling, certainly reach out to me as well. Let's talk and see how we can take advantage of this market and try to get a sense for how best we can serve you. So I sure hope this was useful. We'll talk with you later.